Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hermit Cave. This is a special session for today for, I believe it's Monday, November 11th, 2013. I'm Darko and I have my guest here, Ben. Um, Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Thanks.
We covered geopolitics in the first video. In the second video, social engineering in regards to why are the elites and them pushing equal rights. We covered specifically gay rights, the homosexuals' rights, and feminism, because people always bring it up and they don't know why. So if you're interested in that concept and why they're actually doing it, check out that second video in this today's report. Okay, so in this third video, we could just kind of go anywhere, but I'll start it out with this article right here, which is just unbelievable. Dad called unfit for denying son's McDonald's, says a lawsuit. So this guy is suing the psychiatrist over the designation. I'll just give a brief little thing here, reading it. New York dad suing the court appointed psychiatrist for telling a judge he was an unfit parent because he refused to take his son to McDonald's. The father, who's in the midst of a custody battle, says his 4-year-old threw a temper tantrum when his dad wouldn't take him to the Golden Arches. They gave the boy a choice. He could have dinner anywhere else or skip the meal entirely. Opting for the latter, the son told the tale to his mom, who called child psychiatrist Schiller. Her verdict: Shore is wholly incapable of taking care of his son and should be denied weekend visitation. So he was a victim. He's been victimized, and the woman, they're talking about a split family here. So this is going off the last video in a way, and she goes to this psychiatrist and says, you think that it was something like sexual molestation. He says, I am just floored by it. I think it was a 1950s equivalent of sending your child to bed without dinner. Says that's maybe the worst thing you can say about it. He now regrets not giving. Oh wow, he now regrets not giving in to his son's request, especially after his estranged wife took the boy to McDonald's
I
afterwards.
think that's the
Wow.
key word there, estranged wife.
Yeah, yeah. That's man. So
The court. I can't remember what the last statistic I heard on this issue was, but the court. I think it's like in the high 90 percentile. Always sides with the mother in custody cases and cases of divorce and whatnot. uh, when there's any kind of marital difference, they always almost always side with the mother.
and what that does really, if just to throw it out there, is like it's not about taking sides here. It sucks that it has to happen, but these, if you ask me personally, these are victims of economic warfare and social warfare. So, and then they play gender warfare. But the point is destroying the family, which is a big form of resistance to the powers that be, to this control structure. Again, it's taking decisions away from the family unit. So this is a good example of that. You split them up, and then all of a sudden you have these children going to the female side, and the reason that's messed up is because they're again being exploited for low wages in the labor force. They're competing male versus female in the labor force, and since they're willing to work for less, uh,
It lowers
it
wages.
lowers overall wages. So a lot of stuff is going on here, you know. But yeah, so he gave in. Yeah, he said that now he regrets it because then she just took him to McDonald's. What does that teach the kid? You wonder why there's a lot of this that's happening. These adults that are basically acting like children or something like that, and children that don't know how to behave. And it's like, well, this is a good example right here. So this is not they're not able to exercise their will equally and naturally.
It creates a very unrealistic scenario for how a family unit is supposed to work. We're talking about McDonald's, fast food, you know, and a kid can't get the meal that he wants, so this ends up going to the court system, and even about the highest authority that you can go to over something that should be considered trivial. Um, It's really sad.
Yeah. You know, and I'll leave it up here. Kind of transfer is a good transfer point. You know, just recently you had that kid. Well, not recently. It was a couple years ago. You had a regular citizen and that was going through cancer, a kid, and the court ruled that the parent had to allow that children to get chemotherapy. And the big thing was that the kid didn't want it. That's the main thing is consent. And
Hmm.
they didn't obviously the child. No one asked the child. That's what I'm saying. They bypass the parents, and then they don't even ask the person who they're supposedly looking out for, who says that they don't want it anymore. They feel bad. It's making them feel worse, and so they're going to do what they believe is right. And they did it to the Amish now, which sets a precedent for the Amish. But I have this article: hospital staff member classifies child as a loser for lack of immunizations. So yeah, the crazy thing is that they call this child neglect. If the Amish doesn't want to subject their kids to like chemo and stuff like that, and these parents still want to subject their kids to vaccinations, they call it child neglect. But I guess not neglecting your child is subjecting them to the hospitals and all that. Basically, them being able to put poisons in their children's bodies and stuff like that. So we're talking about decision making and exercising will. Um, isn't it crazy, Ben? Though I mean, like food, you can't grow it. If you grow it, it's got to be in a certain place and that. And if you hunt, it's got to be at a certain time at a certain place. You have to get approval. If you build a house, it's got to be according to code at a certain place. You know, it's insane how they've separated us from being able to do anything as far as exercising our will or making decisions or and they call this society, so it's all got to be done like somehow like this is like we're doing this as a collective. This isn't dictatorial. There isn't some kind of authoritarian approval system to do anything. You know, it's
It's carried out in a very corporatistic manner. Any type of government regulation or oversight, and our government operates in very much the way a corporate bureaucracy would operate. If I was to advocate a government, it would be one where everyone has an equal say, and it's not really organized in any kind of corporate power structure or hierarchy, for that matter.
so we kind of started off with this article here, you know, about this kid getting ready or this dad getting ready to get sued for this, and it's like he was actually looking out for his son's health, and yet, you know, it's like considered to be child neglect. But somehow, you know, selling off your child into corporate bondage is somehow that's not child neglect. That's actually a very good thing. That's kind of crazy. You could send them off to schools to be brainwashed that this is all okay and normal too. You know,
Yeah, it should actually be considered child abuse to do such a thing.
yeah, it should be considered child abuse to be to send them off to be brainwashed so that when they get older, that they could be exploited. And then of course you take it into all the different aspects of being exploited, like we were talking about the feminism and gay rights and they exploit everybody. They exploit the poor. They exploit the middle class. But all these, it seems like a lot of these groups allow themselves to be exploited.
Yeah, it really is the case. It's such an effective word in terms of how I define it. It's just to be used, and uh, you have a lot of people who talk about employment, and this is something that frustrates me uh, about basically the mainstream left, is that they're always talking about the employment problem in this country. And yeah, there is a problem. There's a problem where people aren't having a say about how their energy and their time is being used. and they should have a right in how their time and energy is put to use, and who benefits from their time and energy, who benefits from their work. They should have the foremost say in who's going to benefit from that. And I think if that was the case, the world would be a lot different. But it always goes back to this case of employment. We need more employment. Well, what does employment mean? You look it up in the dictionary, it means to use, basically. You employ a shovel to dig a hole. You employ a pen to write a letter. You employ a knife to cut rope. So if you employ people, you're using them. And they're not going to, and when you use people, that means that you're getting the first say in who's going to benefit from their labor. And that kind of power structure is more often than not, and I really mean way more often than not, to the benefit of those at the top of it and to the detriment of those doing the labor.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy too that and the word games that they play. If people try to look out for their own, if people try to get together and unite on some type of thing, because there is some truth to that, strength in numbers and that, and if people do try to get together and try to make their working conditions better, usually it's the political law enforcement and the state that gets in and helps the corporations. You've seen that in the movie Fist, and a lot of movies where the state comes in there and protects the corporations and these robber barons from the workers being able to exercise. Well, it's not really rights; they got to fight for them, but to be able to exercise their ability to make decisions on their behalf as far as what they're willing to work for, how long, and that. I mean, they don't have control in the production. They don't own the production, so they already lost that. They're just trying to have some say in how long they're going to be rented out for and how much they're going to be compensated for their time.
Yeah, it's really sad that that's really what it amounts to, and that's really what modern unions amount to. They've really lost sight in terms of long-term goals. And long-term goals should be bringing back control and ownership of production back to those who are doing the work, and destroying hierarchy, because hierarchy is only going to result in those at the top of the hierarchy benefiting from those doing all the labor. And it's been all this social engineering has been effective in so many ways that it makes people so much more easily exploited, because they can't unite together, because on the one hand you have the defeminization of men, you have feminism, homosexuality, you're destroying the will of men, you're creating a bunch of weak-willed men who are more subordinate, and you're instilling subordination into women who are going to be very willing to do that work for less, because they think that in doing so they're being empowered. So they're too busy being worried about being empowered. All the meanwhile, they're going to be exploited. And there's also an issue of race there too. It's very hard to unite when we're having multiculturalism shoved down our throats. And if you unite with anyone like yourself, then you're a racist.
So many people fear a collapse, I guess you can call it, of the economic system, but maybe there's reason we should embrace it.
Well, it's either going to collapse or we can dismantle it ourselves collectively. I think if we move in a direction of taking control of production collectively, we can scrutinize it and clearly see that this is bad for us and it's hurting all of us. So we should be moving in a direction of de-evolution of the state, de-evolution of the production system.
The longer we hold on to it and cling to it, like, oh, the collapse, the harder the transition is going to be. That's what you're saying, right? We should welcome it. Deindustrialization, freedom, dissolving the state. So,
Absolutely.
all right. Well, thank you for joining us, Ben. This is the Hermit Cave, and thank you for joining us to the audience.